The XY Advisor podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. This content is created in partnership with our sponsor, Net Wealth Investments Limited, ABN 85090 569 109, AFSL 230 975, and is limited to publicly available information. Before acting on any general advice, you should consider whether appropriate and obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor. XY Advisor does not hold an AFS license and does not provide any financial advice or services or endorse any general advice. If a PDS or IM exists, you should obtain a copy and review it thoroughly before making a decision.
AdviceTech. As if it wasn't enough to be across TMDs, Alpha, Beta, Rule of 72 and all the other nuances of financial advice. Now, advisors are expected to be across all the technology options too, and there's so many of them. But never fear, Peita D is here. Join me each week on a journey of discovery through the software and apps on offer for advisors and advice businesses. So let's dive in, fellow advice explorers.
This episode is brought to you by NetWealth, market-leading providers of technology, excellent customer support and expertise to help your wealth business thrive. Rated number 1 for overall satisfaction and value for money by Investment Trends and Chant West's Advised Product of the Year for the last 4 years, NetWealth is here to support you on your advice technology journey. See wealth differently and visit the website to learn how NetWealth can support your advice and wealth business.
Hello and welcome to the XY Advice Tech Podcast. I'm Peita Diamantidis, and the guest joining me here today to deep dive into the Worksorted app has a graphic design past along with time in business development for a platform and an insurer, and works with innovators to turn their ideas into commercial reality. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, Simon Betchley. Woo!
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. You're very welcome. Now, I'm very keen to dive into all things Worksorted.
Yes.
There's clearly a lot to dive into, I might add.
Yeah.
But before we do, let's just sort of get to know you a little better through your own technology use. So,
Cool.
What is your most used emoji? Do you even use emojis?
Oh, I do. I get told off for using exclamation marks in text messages and emails too much. But I think my most used emoji is going to be, that silly face where it's kind of, one eye up, one eye down, winking, but silly smile with the tongue out. I think that's kind of me. For those that know me, I can't stay too serious for too long.
Nice.
So I reckon that's probably my most used one for sure.
I like it. You haven't gone as far as using like the red exclamation point emoji itself. It's just in the text.
No,
okay,
just the normal.
Because that's quite aggressive, that one, isn't it? And how about if you had to, delete all the apps off your phone and you just got to keep 3? Which 3 would you keep?
Well, you headline this with me having a graphic design background, so it may be no surprise that Instagram's one of my more favorite apps. I follow a lot of artists and the like, so I'm a very visual person. So Instagram for me is sort of one of my, favorite social media platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't live without the Reminders app. I love that because I'm constantly thinking of things will pop up and I don't want to forget them, so I'll just jot them down. It means I can move on with my day, but I'm never going to miss anything. And I got a new app not long ago. I was testing it out for my kids. It's called Impulse, and it's just one of those apps you use to test your memory and to keep your brain functioning. It's some good little puzzles and trips and traps on that one. So I tested it out for the kids, but I found myself using that one almost daily to just sort of jog the brain and like I said, test your memory, test your problem-solving skills. It's a bit of fun.
Oh, I love it. I always love a new app, so I've written that one down. I'll check it out, although it does sound like one of those ones that might be dangerous in that then, I'm diving into that more than I should, but I'll definitely check it out.
It does get a bit addictive.
Right. And I'm one of those people. I'm like, no, 3 hours have gone. No. So let's dive into Worksorted.
Yeah.
Let's sort of go a bit abroad initially. Help me get a sense of where it sort of sits in the whole advice tech space. What category does it generally fall under? Who is it lined up against? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so we're a bit of a fun one, I guess. We are what we refer to, I guess, as a financial services specific CRM. So that's really the core of our product and what we have a reputation for. We were very lucky to win an award for best overall CRM in the Advisor Ratings Landscape Report, the most recent one, which was wonderful. But we also have a strength in revenue management. We consider ourselves, for better word, a practice management solution. I guess our view on the world and our angle is that we fundamentally believe in the value of advice, and we know that great, efficient, effective businesses are able to provide better advice and more advice to clients. We are not paraplanners. We don't have a paraplanning background. We have business background. And so our view is that we want to help advisors run the best possible business that they can so that they can go and do the stuff that they're so great at, which is servicing more clients. So we're a very business-centric tool rather than a paraplanning tool. And it's interestingly one of the first definitions or distinctions that we give when people come and look at Worksorted is, what are you? Well, we start with what we're not, and we're not a paraplanning tool. We're everything else, though. So we fit into that category of operational efficiency. We are helping clients capture their client information, run their businesses through workflows and process automations, have reporting and insights into their revenue and productivity and profitability and cost to serve, all those kind of fun things that businesses are really interested in knowing about their operational side. And we leave the paraplanning tools to the experts in the market that are paraplanning tools.
And it's an interesting approach because there's a lot more specific paraplanning or paraplanning, tangential tools out there now. Just off the top of my head, product recs and others that are fitting this need. And so, we don't need every system to do everything.
No, that's right.
We've got more options, don't we?
Yeah, and I think, without going into the full history of it, that seems to be, there's still a prevalence of all-in-one solutions, and that makes no surprise. They're big businesses. They can, they can provide great tools, but they can't be great at everything. And we've kept our scope very narrow. We've gone deep and rich into our capabilities around that business efficiency. And it's played well into our favour. And certainly we know that businesses, especially with all of the compliance hurdles that they've had to jump through and the layers upon layers upon layers that keep on coming, having a tool that can help them genuinely drive and make efficient, effective changes to the way they operate just saves them having to repeat all of those little redundant things, really bring back the time that they want to do the things that they're really good at. And that's what we get excited about in businesses. If we can get advisors out doing what they love and enjoy doing and take all that mundane, monotonous stuff away and drive that through automation and through our product, then it's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, let's talk through then primary users. So then it's still team members in the practice. So clearly, advisor right through to admin and people like that. I'm expecting. Okay, so you would seek this across the whole business. It's not the sort of thing that you'd see one person in the operation having. If you're using it, everybody's using it. Is that fair?
That's right. Yeah, look, it works best when everyone's got their hands involved because it does become that day-to-day workbench for your activity and your client information and for a lot of your client communication too. So your emails, text messages, documents that you create, file notes, all of that kind of stuff happens in Worksorted. So, we do see the whole business, but it's also interesting that the level of users has expanded with the change in the way businesses operate. So outsourced paraplanners, outsourced administration staff. But by the way we structure and license our product, we don't have limitations on a per user basis. So we offer a single solution, unlimited users, all functionality, which opens up this opportunity to say, well, I have a really good, strong relationship with my referral source or with the accountant in my office, and I happen to do mortgage broking as well. Why can't we all use the system? Even to the extent that we've seen firms that say, well, my compliance officer or my external auditor is given permission to have access to my system, albeit very limited and controlled, but why can't they log in and get the file notes and see what they want to see? And then they don't have to disrupt me. So it's broadened the opportunities with how you engage with your community of connections and taken away that limitation around, it's going to cost me an extra how much to have another license and all those sorts of things.
When you're looking at tools like that, that sort of the other sort of pricing that's either linked to your numbers of users or amount of use. One of those two things. Yeah. I often, as you can imagine, when I'm doing this sort of stuff, I get asked about new apps coming out and things like that, and they ask for my feedback. And that's the two things I give feedback on. Do not price it this way, please, because all of us then hold back.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't use it as much. We don't give it to every member of the team. I mean, right through to the receptionist should have these things because everybody can have an input. Everybody, if there's some tasks, they can tidy up. They can, provide some support to other team members. Like all of that only happens when it's across the board. And when you don't care, you're like, that's good. Just give you access, And
you need that digital footprint, right? We work in a very heavily compliant related environment. So knowing that it was Betty, not Bob, that was doing those things and, giving certain people permission to do certain things is really important in business too. And so, look, it's a joy for us because it means that, businesses can grow, they can ebb and flow. If they've got a temp that's on for a bit, they can, introduce that user to our system and not be concerned about that bottom line cost. But also then, the all functionality gives them that opportunity to start with us around typically our clients will come with a particular problem that they want to solve first. Mm-hmm. But because by virtue of building our system as one from day one, it means that it's all heavily integrated. If you're using our system for revenue, you'll find revenue sits at the client level and you can attach it to activity. And so people are encouraged to use more of our system over time because they go, well, what does that do? How can I use that more? And they're just going to get more benefit, right? We say to our clients, if you see the value in our product at day one, God, you wait until you're at day 10, 20, 50, 100, and whatever, because you're going to be using even more of the system and getting even more value. And, it doesn't matter that it's a fixed price system.
Yeah, okay. And so in that sense then, are there types of practices you see that really manage to get rolling, whereas there's others that struggle, even a style or a size that just works really well for?
Yeah, look, our typical client is a financial planning firm, integrated or not, but typically predominantly financial planning. We do have many firms that have got accounting, mortgage broking and the likes in them too. But the typical is financial planning firm. They tend to be between 2 and 20 advisors. But again, we've got others at either end of that spectrum too. Self-licensed businesses, again, they tend to make their own software decisions. And so it is, less sort of hoops to jump through. But we do work with a number of licensees that are quite practical and pragmatic about having more open software usage. We do have some that mandate our product. We have some that endorse our product. But we prefer to be with the firms that want to use us. So they're the types of independent decision makers that we're looking for. As for then, the cream of the crop or the ones that really seem to drive our system best, they have someone in their business that will be that driver. So it may be, they may be fortunate enough to have a practice manager or operations manager in their business, but sometimes that responsibility, by virtue of the business not being huge, rests with one of the administration staff or potentially an advisor or paraplanner. But having someone that's going to own it and drive it makes all the difference with these things. And I think that happens with any piece of software, right?
I agree.
But we certainly see the value. They if they do have that practice management lens on their job role, then they get Worksorted and they can see how much potential they've got to really hone their business, right, and just drive a better service delivery. Yeah.
And I think, there's an interesting lesson in that's have a guru for the big systems you use. There's going to be a handful that are the chunky ones. Just have a guru in the office. It's the person that's across it. They watch all the newsletters. They constantly interacting with the provider. Let them, and you'll be stunned how often that isn't a senior person. There'll be just somebody in the business that gets it, then they just, for this one, it sounds like, boxes and arrows, numbers, somebody that just can seal that value and so can own that. And then in a team meeting when somebody's talking about either a new process or something to do can be hands up, oh, we could probably do that in Worksorted.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And the product suite does sort of lend itself to there being, interested parties at all sort of spectrums, I guess. CSOs, admin staff and the like love the efficiency they get out of workflow and client communications. Advisors obviously love the revenue, right? So they want to have a look at the numbers, practice owners as well. And then the practice managers sort of sit in between going, right, well, if I can see what it costs us to do all the things we do, I can see what revenue we're generating, I can start to do cool profitability and productivity and all that kind of stuff in there as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
If somebody's sort of curious about the tool, is there anything you'd suggest they do before sort of embarking on Worksorted? Yeah. Is there some stuff they can clean up or anything they can sort of get sorted beforehand?
We always go through, transitioning data is always a big consideration for businesses, and I think it's potentially they perceive it to be a bigger job than it actually is. We do a lot of hand-holding and a lot of help with sort of transitioning data, but it for us is one of those. I think the thought process that you go through is, am I comfortable leaving my all-in-one, or am I already in a position where I'm comfortable to do that? Because if you're splitting up your technology, and you've got to make sure that by doing so that you are going to still drive efficiency, right?
Yep.
It's got to be a better outcome. And in a lot of cases, of course, it is. We're seeing that trend now through the marketplace. I think we're over that sort of hurdle now. Everyone can see the value in starting to split up your systems for the right reasons. But with doing so and making that decision, it's right, well, what am I going to use for all the pieces of my process, right? And for the most part, our clients seem to retain, they tend to be coming from an all-in-one solution. They like it for paraplanning, so they will stick with it for their paraplanning solution. So that won't change. So there's a constant there which reduces the complete disruption to their business. What they are doing, though, is they're now changing in our world, obviously, their CRM. And that can, again, feel a bit concerning for them. But we wrap a nice, strong process around that to make sure that it happens smoothly and quickly and that all their data gets across. And we do a lot of data cleansing along the way. It's inherent in what we do, but it's a great exercise for firms to go through, because what they then get, and, as nerdy as it sounds, is nothing better than a fresh set of data, right? And you've just got all your client names cleaned, all of your addresses, you got rid of all of the archive, all of that sort of stuff is sort of all tidied up, and away you go. You can, get back into doing your processes and driving that efficiency. So, it is a consideration, and we certainly talk through when we talk to any prospective clients, what are you coming from? How do you want to set it up? And what's going to fit in all the, the pieces of the puzzle? Don't have to have it all solved straight away, but it's important that we, especially because we're not everything to everyone, that we can show them what else we connect with, and how we can help them solve that, I hate the word, but end-to-end solution, right? Just it's making sure that we fill all the gaps, or at least point them in the right direction where we're not going to be the person solving it for them.
Yeah. And look, it is a transition like that when it is one of those core. So, because really what you guys, it's got a revenue focus, but CRM and CRMs are in the middle, aren't they? Even though I think in advice we think our paraplanning tools are, it's like, no, the CRM is the center, because that's where the client lives, right? So, that's right. So when you're doing that, I think in our heads, and years ago we would have thought this too, where, right, okay, up to this date, it's one system, and then the day after it's the next one. It's like, there is no hope in hell you're going to pull it off. Like, there's just, well, we've tried and it is not possible. So I think the layers, it's the layers of, right, from this date, those two people are going to start doing a revenue-y thing with the new system. And then they're going to, so it's transitioning into that, cleverly.
That's right. Yeah, and that's where it comes back to, I said they typically come to us with a particular problem that they want to solve. Right. So we solve that one first,
focus
right?
On that first.
It's very easy to get distracted with all the other cool things you can do in Worksorted, and we want them to use everything. That's great. But let's solve the first problem first. We're working with firms at the moment that are moving from a software that's no longer continuing. So first and foremost, get your client data in and start getting file notes in. The rest will come, and we can absolutely transition. So thankfully for us, 12 years of experience doing this, this isn't our first rodeo. So we've got a nice, robust process around that we can help them get across. And it is interesting, once they do come across, what that opens up as far as opportunities to test and try other systems. Because you're right, we do sort of sit as the bedrock. But once you've got that settled down, picking and choosing other advice tools becomes really easy, right? Because you don't have to move your whole business anymore, right? You've got that foundation set up. So if you want to test and play with some of those other peripheral tools, it does actually become quite easy to do.
Right. And I do think, some years ago, we went self-licensed ourselves, and there was a lot of reasons for that. But the one reason that was quite strong for us, but would be a certainty now, is the systems choice. Yeah. We've always, in our business, always been tech focused because we needed to be well ahead of time, just because it was the way it was. But I think, the way we were approaching it then is how most practices are now, like the inability to choose tools that suit yourself, your clients, your niche, it makes such a difference. And you don't realize how hard something is until you then go somewhere else and you're like, oh my. Yeah. We just pressed that button and that just happened, It just happened, Right, the joy of that is amazing. And now, speaking of which, you've just made me think of a topical little form or process that I'd be curious about your view on, and maybe any progress you guys are making. So, consent. Oh, yes. The blessed product provider form, right? So we all know that consent's there and it's fine, and we get our clients to sign off. Yeah. The challenge is the double of it all. Have you guys heard of or have made any progress in discussions with getting providers to just accept either one form we all agree on, or our internal forms, or what's your view on all of that?
Yeah, so when annual advice agreements became the new thing, and we had one licensee that jumped on it about 12 months before it was really enforced for anybody else, we took the took the opportunity to build out, as we had done previously for FDS and opt-in, a full management process in software to handle them. So all of the fields, all the widgets, all the alerts, all of the bits and pieces, a whole, end to end. You can't break it. It'll help you through the entire process. And one of those challenging pieces was, of course, the consent document. Now, we produce capability to create a consent form based on ASIC's sort of default. They had a template.
They did,
and we know that suited.
Which was pretty clear, to be fair. It wasn't so bad,
That's right. So we built the capability around that one. But the question mark really did loom then, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle all the others? Because they all decided, unfortunately, to pick a different path. So, look, it transpired the way it transpired, which has been a pain for advice firms, because whilst all of our functionality around producing, your fixed-term agreements or your ongoing agreements out of Worksorted is seamless and lovely and wonderful, then there's this stumbling block with, hang on, well, what about the consent? Oh, well, one do it this way, one do it this way. I can use your generic one for the others. And it became really, really clunky. So I'm absolutely advocating for a single sort of template for those things, because I already have a stack of development initiatives that will help to streamline that process phenomenally. We already have, again, that ability to track consent due dates and all those sorts of things in our system. We produce the OFAs and the AFAs and all the bits that go with it. But there is, without giving away too many of my secrets, we do have a very good idea around not only we can issue them right now and digitally sign them and all those wonderful things, but then the return of those and then the issuing to the product providers is something that we've got some really cool ideas around. So all I need is a standard form, and then we will go on for that one. So
and I think the mistake, and I don't put this on anybody in particular, really, we were all reacting. I mean, that's what happened here, right? We all reacted to something that was a requirement. Instead of approaching it as more like, well, how are everybody going to approach contributions, which is got to be acceptable across all and got to be, right? Yes. We looked at it as something that was an individual thing per practice, and it was a fundamental mistake. It needs to be like a notice of intent form. Like, it just needs to be this, everybody's the same. We all, or at the very least, all of the fields are the same, the way we state it. I mean, and I'm okay with the provider saying, well, it's, you've got to say our account number's got to be this way and it's got to have this many digits. All of that's fine.
Sure.
All that's
those
fine. Those
nuances we can handle.
100%. But the need to double up and some of them handle the dates differently and I feel like for the past probably – even the past 18 months, I feel like there's a good half of our practice where it's just been dealing with, because the follow-ups alone. And this is for people that want to do it. The clients want, it's not like they're resisting.
Correct. Yeah.
It's just a debacle. So I'm with you there. We need to pick at somebody.
Yes.
Get them all on the case. All the XY members listening, let's start all talking about how we can just get this one simple thing sorted, because I think it'll make all our lives that much easier.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a bit more about client-facing stuff. Is there any? Is the practice really designed internal? Is there any part of it that interacts with the client at all?
Yeah, look, there's tons. So I guess by virtue of it being that main platform that captures client activity, you then use our system for email, for SMS, for questionnaires, for fact finds. We are in the process now of looking at a version, if you like, of a client portal. I've got to be careful of the terminology here, because we are not building necessarily a full-fledged digital fact find like those that are in the marketplace. We integrate with lots of those very good tools, but certainly it's a very topical issue right now with security, right? And so because we are that tool that is so heavily used between the advice firm and the client, we do want to make sure that there is a more secure way of sharing documents, right? We can use e-signatures and all those sorts of things, which is fine for those types of things. But when you've got large files that are Word documents, PDFs, scanned images of things, even giving IDs, all of those sorts of things that you need to provide to an advice firm, there's got to be a more secure way of doing it. It needs to have two-factor authentication and all those sorts of things. So whilst we have a lot of great facilities for those things, another more secure way of doing this that is a little bit more modern than just using email is certainly where we're going to head. But I mean, look, our system is used heavily to engage with clients. Our process automation functionality allows you to automate a significant amount of that as well. So anything from basic, text messages to wish them a happy birthday through to, review reminders and issuing documents to them, all those sorts of things. Our system, sees a lot of input and output with clients.
And I'm seeing a lot more of that in the client portal sort of view is years ago, it was always like, let's just call it app, a client app.
Yes.
The focus was very much on data feeds.
Yes.
Like it was, but what the clients want to log in and see their balance. I'm like, yes, but they can get that on the other app that the provider has. Yeah. What they can't do is easily interact with us.
Yeah.
And so for me, I see, the really great portals will just be that hub, that place where we interact.
That's right.
And cut through the noise of all the other channels we're trying to get to them on. Yeah. Phone, SMS, emails, if that can become the home or the place or the virtual office, really.
That's right. And the trick is, you're giving them another app possibly, right? And so the trick is not to just sort of, bombard them with lots and lots of apps. And so this where, we've got a pretty pragmatic view on it. There are front-end client engagement tools out there. So I bundle into that, the portals and the digital fact find solutions. And there's lots of new entrants as well as some, good mature products in that space. Yep. We want to integrate with those really good tools so that we don't have to then add another one to the pile, so to speak, that if they want to use any of them, I won't go listing them all, but we all know who they are, to submit client information, to submit documents and data and all those sorts of things. Well, then we want to integrate with those so that we can share them obviously into our system which is where they will normally end up residing anyway. Yeah. And then obviously be able to push documents back. So we've been building some really cool integration to share documents that you can produce in Worksorted into those front-end tools as well. Nonetheless, we will still sort of progress forward with having our own simple version of those things because not everyone's using those engagement tools. No. And it makes sense for us to have one as part of our suite. So they will, similar to our digital fact find solution, it is good. I'm not going to put it up there as the best, but it's good and it certainly serves a purpose and it definitely helps our clients out. And the client portal will be a really decent, slick, simple to use client portal. But we're not going to try and really push in and create a brand new app and all those sorts of things as well. Yeah, and
that's the thing. I think we do need to stop looking for that one ring to rule them all sort of approach to systems because it doesn't work. No, it just doesn't, and we can kid ourselves that it does, but it simply doesn't. And the best analogy I heard for that was, if we tried to pick, the best house and the best car and the best all these things and put it all together, it's the ugliest caravan you've ever seen. And it doesn't go fast and it's not actually particularly safe and it doesn't have a pool and it doesn't, so we can't do that with our systems. So I like the idea of having a tool like this, CRM at the core, revenue feeding really well, and then, hey, trying out your portal. And then if you grow out of it, that's okay. Yeah. If you grow out of the portal, you can add on, and as long as integration is possible, then I think that's a powerful and quite sensible approach to some of those things, easing yourself in.
Yeah, and it is for us, that is very much part of our remit. We're comfortable not being everything to everyone, so it is important for us to integrate them with lots of other things. And integration, we could have a whole conversation on integration in itself.
Next on my list.
It means a lot of things to different people, and unfortunately, I think what it's perceived to be from an advisor's perspective, an advice practice's perspective, and what it is sometimes sold as are two very different things. So that's again part of the questioning that I suggest advisors have when they're looking at software and you talk about integration. If you ask the question, are you integrated with this? And they say yes, ask how and how much, what are you sharing? How does it work? Because yes could mean as simple as, we share 3 fields of client data, and that's not really that helpful, but nice to have maybe, but how valuable is that? So, look, we have lots of integrations and some of them are very simple and some of them are very complex, but our focus now is less on the volume of them and more on the depth that we can build into them. So we want to, and that plays into some other functionality that we're really strong in. Not only do we want to share client data and documents because it makes sense to do those things to reduce rekeying and re-entry and all the like. So it's good to have that data synchronization. But where the fun stuff comes in is where we can automate actions out of one system into another. So this is the next level of integration and automation, if you like, that we're seeing. And there are a small percentage of players that are using things like Zapier to already do that, right? You can update a client information in one software, and it will go and do 5 other things through Zaps, right? We're looking at exactly the same sort of thing through Worksorted. So because we, as you said, and we agree, fit kind of in the middle. You would have front-end kind of client engagement tools, digital fact-find solutions, portals, all those sorts of things. At the back end, we kind of put, your advice production tools, all those sorts of things. So that's sort of the standard trifecta, if you like, of advice relevant, financial services relevant tools. But then you also have Xeros and DocuSigns and, you have Calendly's and all of these other products.
Absolutely.
Right? All those what I refer to as industry agnostic tools that you use in your business too. And we can't be complacent. They are also just as valuable, just as heavily used, tools that you use in your business. So we've got to make sure that we're connecting to those, which we do. But then also allow those sort of that chain, domino effect, if you like, or that chain reaction of events when we do something simple in one system. So that's my headspace now sits when we build an integration is, okay, let's make sure we've got data shared. That's step number one. Now, what can we automate? Right. Yeah. So when you do that, if a client enters their data in that front end portal, we want it to create the client. Sure. We want it to create a job for one of the CSOs. We want it to send a thank you email and have a link to the online calendar. And we want it to update in MailChimp. We want to do all of those things so that the user just doesn't have to do it because that's their standard process. And that's, I think that's where the real fun's going to be. I joke about it, bringing the fun back to financial planning. We've got to do that, right? And tech can play a big part in that.
And certainly I completely agree with you because I think in the industry, we think that sort of data replication or reduction of double entry is where the value is. And I don't think it is. I think that's like a 10% of a total 100% of automation value. It seems like a lot because advisors feel like they do it a lot and therefore it becomes our pain and therefore we make everybody else live our pain, right? So it seems like that's the case. But the repetition of setting a task for somebody else, for moving over there and adding that thing in and ticking that box over here. And in admin, the amount of that going on is nuts. And that's where we've found value, to be honest. And, a simple example, and it's using something like Zapier is, we've historically, say, taken on a portfolio of clients and that, upload into a system generally, okay, great. That's a task and hopefully your data's clean and the whole thing's not too bad. But we've managed to use Zapier to actually trigger when that happens, it automatically sets up the client folders in Google Drive, one after the other, all templated, ready to go. It's that stuff, right? So now people go, oh, is that a big deal? Yeah, it really is. Like to have those things just done well, all clean. It's that sort of simple and mind-numbing task.
Yeah.
Really, nobody loves doing that stuff.
No, we used to see it even in our own system, workflow processes, and one of the steps in the process is send the generic email, welcome email to the client. And we just, hang on, let's just automate that entire step, right? So just press the button to complete it and it will automatically send that email to your client and it's already done, right? It saves as a file note, client gets it, wonderful.
Correct.
So taking some of those things out. So instead of seeing the instruction to do it, the system just does it, I think.
Absolutely. And what's powerful about those things is it frees up more time to actually interact with the client in a more fluid way.
Well,
because I think
I love it on 2 accounts. It does. It frees up the time, but it also improves that engagement you have with your clients, like the experience that they have by getting these emails, getting that contact point. Sometimes it's unnecessary, but the fact that you've just sent them an email that says, we're at this stage, we've completed all these things, and when this is the next step in the process, you've kept them informed. They love hearing those sorts of things. Simple email, automated, that's great. So we always look at, our product development on those 2 lenses. If we're solving a problem for the advice firm and helping them sort of do what they do better, great. But if it's also then making them look like a champion in front of their clients, even better.
And updates are powerful, aren't they? Because, everybody feels a void with concern. It's just who we are. So if you can just be giving them updates, it's why people love apps. Well, all of our deliveries now, we all get those updates. Even some of your shopping, you can watch the truck on your phone. Do I need to watch the Harris Farm truck as it delivers my food? No, but it makes me feel better, right? And it gives me certainty, and I'm not thinking, oh, are they going to forget, or is it not? So I think that I agree with you. Some of that stuff that the minute a team member just completes a task and they're off doing their thing, they don't don't need to worry about interacting with the client. Oh, this has been done. We're one step further along. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And it's probably we don't do it quite enough in advice.
No, and we can learn a lot. Again, I look outside of our industry for inspiration too. There's a lot to be inspired about in our industry, but I think from a tech perspective, we're too far behind. So, I don't benchmark ourselves against what we do in our own industry. I benchmark ourselves against, those global amazing pieces of technology that do have that level of engagement. The way eBay communicate with you throughout the sales process and all those sorts of things. That's a high level of engagement that is really cool. Sometimes borderline obsessive and over the top, but it's still great. Like you just said, every step of the way, I know exactly where things are at. I know when my deliveries are coming, when it's left here, and to have that level of engagement, I think just gives a comfort and trust, right? It builds that trust, which is awesome.
And it is a bottom line item. I think it's something because, once again, it's not necessarily coming to the advisor, but very few practices would be counting the inbound calls or emails they get because somebody's wondering where something's at. But actually that can become quite a big portion where it's you reacting to somebody that's just following up on something that you're about to get to. It's that stuff. And so the more we can just sort of automate that checking in, they're not going to feel the need. No. So your time isn't going to get sucked into something it doesn't need to. I do think there's, and particularly, we're in, a portion of market joy, said sarcastically right now, where you are going to be getting lots of queries and you're going to be, interacting with clients. So to give them something that just felt like they're kept up to date, they don't need to inbound query you, will free your time up and just make it that bit more manageable. So integrations clearly play a big part for you guys. It's something that's sort of that you would put as a big tick box or a focus for you, which
very much, From a development perspective, we cannot ignore it. We will not ignore it. And as I mentioned, we have a reasonable set of integrations already, both front end, back end, and then obviously those industry agnostic tools. We will continue to build out that list, but it is more, as I mentioned, a quality over quantity focus now. Because we've picked a couple of the big few advice tools, so we kind of cover a lot of the market there, and we've got a couple of the big few at the front end and those sorts of things. So it's now sort of looking at what are the tools that add a lot of value to our advisors, and we consider startups as well. We're not just looking at the mature products. So we see some really interesting startups that we like, and we want to make sure that we're connected to those. But it is also looking for us, at the industry agnostic tools that are so commonly used that add value. So because we work in the revenue space, payment gateways, invoicing and managing payments is becoming a bigger thing for advisors, right?
It is.
They still have plenty of platform fees and insurance commissions, but, direct fee for service via invoice is happening. It's happening a lot. Now, you've created a new challenge of recovering, your income, right? So how do we make that an efficient process? Well, it makes sense, just like we have through Xeros and, MyObs and all the rest. You've got your little pay now button. Well, you can generate invoices out of Worksorted. So they want to issue an invoice and have the same sort of capability. So and for us, that's exciting because it's really managing that revenue all the way through the process. It can come back to the payment gateway, reconcile in our system, match off automatically in software. All of those sorts of things are really cool. So we're tinkering with some tools in that space as well. We want to remain strong in CRM, strong in revenue, and I think wrapped around that is just that business operational view. We've got a number of industry-specific tools that we are currently working with as well that will release another integration just before the FPA conference and another one shortly thereafter, hopefully. And then, the sort of bits and pieces like our own portal and those sorts of things are definitely on the short-term horizon. Yeah.
Is there anything that you see so you've got your current users where they really ninja things? You're like, wow, they've pulled something off that even you potentially didn't expect?
So I have a great amount of joy in catching up with advice firms and seeing how they're using our system. I spent a Friday afternoon last week with 4 practices in the same network that all use Worksorted. They came to me with 18 product development improvements that they would like me to consider. They had ranked them. They had part-written specs for them, and it was awesome. And I got to sit there and listen to the way they used it. And things like process automation are really popular in our software. And those guys use it well, and they gave us a number of ideas on how we could use it better. So the way they were doing that and the collaboration that they had with each other was phenomenal. We have some users that have built out incredible processes. One of our practices is about 80 automated processes, and the level of efficiency that drives in her business, not only for herself in her operational role, but for her staff, and even when new staff come in, the small amount of training that is required, because they just then follow the bouncing ball in their processes, is just incredible. And it's not difficult to get there. But it's a journey, right? Because every business is different. I can't just take her processes and give them to your business, because you don't operate that way. But once you understand the capability and the potential, then, the mind starts going up. So we, in particular, have agreed this week that that particular power user of process automation is going to do a masterclass. And we're going to invite all our users to come along and see how she does that, because it is quite incredible. We have others that obviously use the revenue side really strong, and not only using it to understand their actual received revenue, but their expected revenue, and they are able to compare and make sure that they're not missing payments that come through. But really, I guess because of the breadth of functionality in our system, I say we're narrow, but, having revenue at one end and workflow on the other end means that there's quite a lot of opportunity to just do things really well. We've got some that have built the most beautiful document templates in our system, and we've coupled again with process automation. When they issue out their emails automatically to their clients, God, they look good, and it's just, you think, man, that is a professional operation. But there's just lots of little opportunities in Worksorted to pick a bit of functionality and really use it well and get a great outcome out of it. Even our questionnaires now gets used in so many different ways. It could be a risk profile questionnaire that they've built out, which just saves them a heap amount of time when their clients come into the office, to just general questionnaires about things that they're interested in and their lifestyle and those sorts of things, so that they can have a more robust conversation with them. And again, you can automate those to go out too, right? So they might do them periodically to just sort of touch bases with their clients, and they can be super informal, and they're just a nice way to engage.
Absolutely. So even feedback loops can be when you can do that easily. That's and short. I love those. I mean, my favorite are frowny face, flat face, smiley face. Like you're going to get nearly everybody doing that.
The how did we go? You've just been into the office. You had a meeting. How did we go? And again, we're starting to see those. That's the power of that automation, is that you can set it up and say, right, well, when we've completed the meeting appointment, we're going to put that into complete, and it's going to automatically send that email to them and go, hey, just checking in. You had your meeting. Hope it went well. Love a bit of feedback. All those sort of things. I think the more people are sort of digging into the detail of our system, the more they're getting out of it. And, we have some firms that have been with us. We've still got some of our first 10 practices that signed up to Worksorted still on board, but they don't know what they don't know, right? And we're a business that doesn't just release once a quarter or once a month. We do 2 releases a week. So there's always going to be stuff that they'll miss. So we do have that wonderful experience that they circle back to us, 5 years later, and they say, look, we love your system, but we're not sure if we're using it to the best of its ability. And we'll actually do like a practice audit, and we'll have a look at how they're using our system, and we'll help them get more out of it. And we'll introduce them to practices that are using it differently in different areas. I'm making another connection this afternoon with 2 self-licensed businesses, one here in Adelaide, one in Victoria, that want to talk about staff KPI reporting and how they're handling that out of Worksorted. So, it's fun.
And I think if there's one consistent theme across the interviews I've done so far, and we're 15 in or something, I think now, out of the first 24 in the series, is we are not ever using the tools we already have to their full capability. And that's right. Everything. Every single tool. Excel, you name it, none of them are we using. And so, what a wonderful opportunity, because just using the ones you've got to their full capability doesn't cost you anymore.
No, that's
it's just using what you're already paying for, so
exactly.
I love that. I think that's a wonderful opportunity. Look, I'm all for upgrading your systems and looking at alternatives. Don't get me wrong. In fact, I'm probably too far that way, if anything, but hence why I'm hosting this. But I do think there's so much opportunity for each of us just to squeeze out that extra bit of value and impact out of the tools we're already using.
That's right. Yeah. And if it's just a quick little educational session and then you get stuck into it and you can do it, that's even better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Our job as software providers is to just make sure that it is simple and intuitive to use and that you can get in and do these things. I don't want to build an economy of consultants to help you use Worksorted. I want you to be able to do it for yourself.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
So that's, we're quite proud of that. But look, when we can get involved and help them, we're more than happy to do that too.
Perfect. Yeah. So you've mentioned a couple of things that are on the development path coming up, which is great. Yep. Is there anything that bit further out that's a bit of a wish list thing, like, I'd love us to get to this point, that you're like, ooh.
Yeah, we've got a couple of. I'll try not to give away too much of the secret stuff that's going on, but we build a development pipeline that will sort of extend for our 12-month period, so for our financial year. But we intentionally leave enough fat in those sort of later quarters because things do change, right? And we've got to react to, we'll wait and see what comes out of the quality advice review, right? So those sorts of things may mean some items get pulled up or down the list and we change priorities. So we do remain quite flexible, but there are some cool bits of functionality on the horizons that we'd like to get to around integrating our product further with things like voice to IP VoIP. So being able to connect and make the call from Worksorted, save the audio note, because we've seen more and more of the Zoom conversations going on, and instead of PDFs getting saved into our system, it's MP4 files, right? It's the video files are getting saved in there, and so
absolutely,
we've acknowledged that and gone, well, we can work more closely with these providers. Again, we don't have to be the video tool, but we can connect with best of breed tools in that space, so that you can make your calls, have your videos, save them as notes, audio notes, video notes, have them transcribed, and have a bit of a richer connection there with your CRM. So that's certainly something that we'd really like to get to. We've been tinkering with the phone app ourselves, but more for the practice rather than for the clients.
Yes.
In the sense that advisors, again, when they're out on the road or getting back out on the road, they still want to be able to look up a client, find their address, find their phone number, save a file note, audio note, those kind of things. Kick off a job, see where a job's at, just some of those sort of basic functions. They're not running drill down reports on their revenue from their phone, but just some basic capabilities, interactivity with our system. So they're not pressingly urgent for us. They'd be really nice to have, and certainly, we can see the value in them. They just they sit a little bit further on the horizon.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
all of those sound pretty exciting. Is there anything else we've missed about the system that's a particular?
No, look, I think we've done a pretty good job of covering it. I think we will continue to stay true to our segment, if you like, of the industry, double down and just do what we do really well and make sure that we are adding as much value in that space as we can. We'll connect with the right tools to make sure that businesses can build their end-to-end stack. Again, not my favorite words, but whatever the advice firm considers to be their end-to-end is what we want to help be part of and make sure that we're facilitating as much of that efficiency as possible. And connecting with those tools, be it industry-specific or agnostic.
Oh, I love those words. Agnostic. Oh, so exciting. All right, Advice Explorers, if you'd like to find out more about Worksorted, then the website link is in the episode show notes. We've also popped in Simon's LinkedIn details, so that feel free to nudge him, and I'm sure he'll either respond or point you in the direction of the appropriate person who should respond. Thank you so much for joining us, Simon. I love that Worksorted is sort of one of the tools, and there's more coming, I know, but one of the tools in the industry that really sees the value in actual integrations, not monster integrations that are crazy and clunky and sort of, are excluded from people like us that are a small business. The more we can make all of this accessible to anybody in the industry and they can build whatever they like, it's just down to our imaginations then, and how exciting is that in terms of the offer you can build and the clients you can serve. So please keep that up. Can't wait to see where it goes in the future.
Will do. Thanks for having me along. It's been great.
You're welcome. So, are you a current user of Worksorted? Maybe you've given it a try, you've got some feedback or some insights. Maybe you completely agree with everything we just covered, or maybe have some different experiences. No matter what they are, please share your insights on the XY community platform, as we'd all love to hear your take and any further tips you might have, to give other advisors or practices that are maybe considering checking out Worksorted. And in terms of sort of my thoughts, look, if you haven't come across Zapier before, I would really encourage you to put aside just a little bit of time to watch a few YouTube videos on it. Zapier can be your own little connector for the repetitive little tasks that you and your team are doing, and it can really streamline things and make life just that bit easier, right? These are these 1% things that we're going to find hundreds of to just change our worlds and the way we do things. The key thing to understand is that Zapier has just two key elements, the trigger and the action. Now, the trigger is something that happens in one system, right? And the action is the thing that you want to occur in another system when that trigger is tripped, right? So it can connect Excel to Word, Gmail to Google Sheets, anything, a trigger in one can cause an action in another. And it is truly as big or as beneficial as your own imagination. If you write a list of all of the tools you use and then check them on Zapier to see whether they're there, right, you've got your main list. Then just copy and paste it to the right. And I want you to just draw random lines from apps on the left to the right and see if any of those are like, ooh, that connector could really make a difference for us. Now, when you become a real ninja at this, then you can actually have automation within a system. So an Excel trigger could cause an Excel action. This might be something you otherwise can't do in a system, that you can't tell something within it to cause something else to happen, but it's really powerful. So I would encourage you just to start checking it out. You don't have to use it yet. Just start to get a feel for it, because more and more of the tools in our world are going to be on the list for things like Zapier, and it's going to really help us streamline our offerings. Now, as you know, there is only one skill we need to become bionic advisors, and it's avid curiosity. And so to help you build that habit, today's Curiosity Corner app that sort of caught my eye is Up Content. Now, you can find Up Content at upcontent.com. And they describe it as a way to discover, collaborate, and distribute relevant third-party content that'll help you turn leads into loyal customers. Now, basically, this is all about finding content that uniquely suits your niche and then easily distributing it using integrations with social scheduling tools and newsletter tools like, say, MailChimp. It even has the ability to add a call to action to the content that you're curating for your audience. So I just want to be really clear what I'm saying there. It can be somebody else's article that you're basically sharing with your audience, but you could add your own call to action at the end of that article, right? And that can be interesting. You don't need to write all of your own content. You can curate great stuff that's already out there. This could be perfect if you're working on a new niche and you really want your content to pop, but maybe you just don't have that ability or even interest in sort of writing it all from scratch. So I'd encourage you to check it out. And as always, please reach out if you enjoy it or you find it really valuable, because I'd love to hear about it. Well, that's all we've got for this week. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you'll get your AdviceTech fix automatically sent to you each Friday. Now, lots of us are really keen to focus on a new niche, like I just mentioned, or perhaps refine our niche even further, just to ensure our messaging and offer really resonate with them. But the challenge is then working through what changes we need to make to both our processes and our systems to best deliver that offering. So if you are keen to build a niche that loves what you do and will pay you for it, and then have a plan to scale up your business so that you even love looking after them because it's so streamlined and effective, then be sure to join Jenny Pierce and I for our Niche Down and Scale Up Masterclass. The first will be held in Sydney in early 2023, but we're getting loads of interest in nationwide locations. So please reach out if you're interested at LinkedIn Peita MD. That's PEITA-MD. Otherwise, I'll look forward to turning up in your earbuds next week. And remember, Advice Explorers, stay curious.